Welcome. Today we are going to discuss the epistemology, ethics and atheism in Jaina philosophy. In this module on Jainism, we shall discuss the Jaina theory of knowledge or epistemology, its ethical position and the concept of God. Now, we take up epistemology. Jaina epistemology gives the detailed account of the different ways of knowing. According to Jainism, consciousness is the essence of the soul, which by its very nature is omniscient. The soul knows everything, the past and future, the nearest and remote. Knowledge is not a property of the soul, but its very essence. The soul is coextensive with the body. The embodied soul needs the instrumentality of the mind and the senses of knowledge to take place. As the soul is in the essence of knowledge, mind and senses are unimportant as far as knowledge is concerned. But while we live in this world, we cannot know the objects without the instrumentality of the mind and the senses. In fact, the body, the mind and the senses are the obstructions caused by karma, which hinder the soul in acquisition of direct knowledge. The relationship between the soul and knowledge is both identity and difference. The senses and the mind are the media of perception. The senses themselves cannot perceive anything. The soul alone cannot be the perceiver. If freed from matter, the soul becomes omniscient, knowing everything directly and immediately. Now, we will look into knowledge. Jainism admits a twofold classification of knowledge, namely immediate and mediate. They are also called aparoksha and paroksha, but they point out that what is ordinarily regarded as the immediate knowledge is only relatively immediate. Perception of external or internal objects, though through the senses or the indriyas or the mind or called manas, is immediate when compared to inference. Such knowledge cannot be said to be absolutely immediate, because the soul knows the object through the medium of the senses and the mind. Immediate knowledge is further divided into three: avadhi, manapariya and kevala. When a person has partially destroyed the influence of karma, he or she acquires the power of knowing objects which have forms but are too distant or minute to obscure to be observed by the senses or the mind. Such a immediate knowledge is termed as avadhi jnana. When a person has overcome jealousy, hatred, etc., it is possible to have direct access to the thoughts of the minds. Such as knowledge is called manapariya. When all karmas that are obstruct knowledge are completely expelled from the soul, the result is absolute knowledge or omniscience, and this is called kevala jnana. Only the liberated souls can have such knowledge. In addition to these, there are two other kinds of ordinary knowledge possessed by the average person. These are termed as madhi and shrudha. Madhi is a kind of knowledge which man can obtain through the senses or manas. The madhi includes ordinary immediate knowledge, memory, recognition and inference. The knowledge obtained from the authority is termed as shrudha. Now, we will discuss the mediate and immediate kinds of knowledge. Perception is distinct or spashta knowledge. Distinctness consists of apprehensions of an object with its specific qualities without the mediation of any other knowledge. It is independent of other means of knowledge and apprehends an object as this. The knowledge of thisness and the particular qualities constitute the distinctness of perception. There are two kinds of perception, empirical and transcendental. Empirical perception depends on the sense organs and the conditions of knowledge. Our ordinary perception is empirical. Transcendental perception, on the other hand, does not depend upon the sense organs or any other conditions of knowing. It is the revelation of the knowledge of all objects due to extirpation of the karmic matter that enters into the soul. Empirical perception is either sensuous or non-sensuous. Sensuous perception is due to the external organs stimulated by the external objects, which apprehend the external objects with the sensible qualities. Non-sensuous perception is a mental operation which apprehends pain and pleasure through the mind, that is not a sense organ. Both sensuous perception and mental perception apprehended only a part of the object distinctly, but they cannot apprehend an object with its infinite qualities and relations. Pure knowledge is a revelation from within the self due to the removal of the karmic matter covering it. Now, we will go to sense perception. According to the Jaina philosophers, sense perception has 4 stages. They are avagraha, iha, avaya and dharana. Avagraha is the first, and in this stage there is only the distinct sensation like that of a sound. It is not yet known what it means. The primary state of consciousness is known as avagraha or grasping the object. The second stage, a query arises, what is the sound? And this questioning state of the mind is called iha or the query. In the third stage, a definite judgment like, this is the sound of a bird, this is called avaya, and removal of a doubt. Then what that has ascertained is retained in the mind, and this retention is called dharana or holding in the mind. Transcendental perception depends on the soul alone. It is independent of the sense organs and the mind. In the transcendental state of perception, the soul directly perceives the objects by destruction of the karmic matter covering it, independently of the sense organs and other conditions of knowing. There are 2 kinds of transcendental perception, incomplete and complete. Incomplete transcendental perception is further divided into 2. They are called avadhi and manapariya. Complete transcendental perception is known as kevala jnana. Avadhi is the perception of sensible objects independent of the sense organs and the mind due to the destruction of a karmic crust obscuring the knowledge. It is more or less like clairvoyance in psychology. Manapariya is the telepathic knowledge of other minds. It is also direct or immediate knowledge caused by the destruction of karmic matter obscuring knowledge. Kevala jnana is the stage of omniscience, the stage of unlimited absolute knowledge. Complete transcendental perception is immediate knowledge of all substances and their modes and their infinite aspects. It arises from the annihilation of the entire crust of the karmic matter due to right intuition, right faith and right conduct. C.D. Sharma gives an account of immediate knowledge in his critical survey of Indian philosophy. He says, avadhi is direct knowledge of a thing even at a distance of space or time. It is called avadhi or limited because it functions within a particular area up to a particular time. It cannot go beyond spatial and temporal limits. Manapariya is direct knowledge of the thoughts of others. This too is limited by spatial and temporal conditions. In both avadhi and manapariya, the soul has a direct knowledge unaided by the senses or the mind. Hence, they are called immediate though limited. Kevala jnana is unlimited and absolute knowledge. It can be acquired only by the liberated souls. It is not limited by space, time or objects. Now, we move on to mediate knowledge. Paroksha Jnana or indirect knowledge according to Jainism is of 5 kinds: recollection, recognition, induction, deduction and testimony. First, recollection or smriti. Recollection is the condition that arises from the impression produced in the past. It is the result of the past experience of a person. Jainism takes recollection as an important kind of knowledge because they think that inference is based on recollection. P.T. Raju explains this point of Jainism in his Structural Depths of Indian Thought. He observes, if we do not accept recollection as valid for the reason that it is due to a past impression, then we should not accept inference also as valid, because it is due to or mediated by the major premise, which also is based on a past experience and impressions left by them. In fact, all determinate perception is thus mediated by past experience held in a perception. If perception is the cognition of the individual determined by a universal pragara form, and knowledge of the universal is the result of a past experience. Now, we move on to the second kind of perception. It is called recognition or pratyabhijna. Pratyabhijna is the second form of indirect cognition. It is the composite cognition produced by perception and recollection. It apprehends an object in ways like this is that, this is different form of that, etc. This is that Devadatta. A wild cow is like a cow. This is called a tree. These are forms of recognition. Recognition apprehends identity, similarity, difference, correlation, etc. Jainism considered recognition as a distinct kind of a valid knowledge. It knows the present perceived object as known in the past. For example, this is that Devadatta. Perception knows this recollection from that, but recognition knows this is that. Jainism included comparison also in recognition. Recognition knows an object as it really is and is in harmony with its real nature. The third kind is induction or tarka. Tarka is knowledge of the invariable concomitants, namely vyapti, between the middle term with the major term derived from observation of their co-presence and co-absence. There are 2 kinds of vyapti. One is called Anvaya vyapti and the second is called Vyadirega vyapti. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire is Anvaya vyapti, whereas wherever there is no fire, there is no smoke is Vyadirega vyapti. The fourth kind is deduction or inference. It is also called Anumana. Deduction is the knowledge of the major term derived from the knowledge of the middle term. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. There is smoke, therefore, there is fire. Here, fire is inferred from smoke. Smoke is the middle term, fire is the major term. The inference is based on the universal concomitants between the middle term with the major term. It is based on the vyapti derived from the induction or tarka. The last kind of knowledge here is testimony or sruti. Sruti is the last variety of indirect cognition. This is really verbal knowledge or the knowledge obtained from the words. It is also the knowledge derived from the reliable persons. The reliable person is one who knows the object as they really are and express this idea correctly. His words are in harmony with the objects. Jainism does not believe in the authority of the Vedas, but they believe in the authority of the Tirthankaras who attained perfection and are omniscient. Testimony is a proposition or a sentence. A sentence is a collection of independent words. Every word has a meaning because a word denotes an object by virtue of its natural denotative power and convention. A word manifests an object by its natural power, but the truth and the falsehood of the utterance of the word depends upon either on the excellence or the imperfection of the speaker. Now, we move on to the ethics of Jaina philosophy. Jainism is a religion without God, but the teachings is spiritualistic and ethical in nature. Though Jainism denies God, it accepts Godhead. This Godhead is exemplified in each and every perfected soul. The Jaina philosophers accept four values of life, wealth, enjoyment, ethical merit, and salvation. Karma is the link that unites the soul with the body. The bondage of the soul is due to its being entangled in the world of actions or karma. Salvation can be attained only by lifting oneself above the actions and all eschewing actions, ignorance of truth and four passions, anger, greed, pride, and delusion attract the inflow of karmic matter towards the soul. The karmic matter infiltrates the soul just as water unites with the milk. According to Jainism, passions are due to ignorance. So, ignorance is the real cause of bondage. Ignorance can be removed by right knowledge. Right knowledge is inculcated by faith in the teachings of the Tirthankaras. Hence, faith is necessary precondition for overcoming bondage. Right knowledge dawns when all karmas are destroyed by right conduct. Thus, right faith, right conduct, and right knowledge together form the path of liberation. These are the three jewels, Triratnas they are called. They are inseparably linked together, and perfection of the one goes with the perfection of the other two. No other Indian school had preached more strongly against action or karma than Jainism. According to Jainism, infinity, omniscience, and original blissfulness of the jivas are lost because of action. The inflow of action pollutes the soul, veils its infinity and omniscience, and makes it finite being. This state is called asrava. By the practice of right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct, the influx of a fresh karmic matter is stopped. Then the already existing karma must be expelled, and thus liberation can be attained. For obtaining liberation, it is necessary to stop fresh inflow of action. It can be done through restraint, carefulness in speech, observation of rules, and good conduct. This state is called samvara. Then one should work for the exertion of the already accumulated action through penance. Penance not only stops the inflow of new action, but also exhausts the already performed actions. This state is called nirjara or wearing out. When all accumulated actions or the last particle of karma has been expelled, the partnership between the soul and the body ends, and the soul shines in its own light. Here, Kevalajnana is attained. Jainism speaks of the fivefold spiritual discipline. In the case of monks, it is extremely strict, rigid, and Puritan. For the layman, they are prescribed in a modified form. The vows in their extreme form are known as the great vows or Mahavratas, and the modified form or the lesser vows are called Anuvrata. Non-injury Ahimsa, non-uttering of falsehood Satya, non-stealing called Asteya, abstention from sensuality Brahmacharya, and non-possession are the five great vows or vratas. The lesser vows are also the same except in the last two. They are replaced respectively by the vow of chastity, and the principle of limiting one's want to the minimum possible. The practice of 5 vows paved the way for liberation of the soul from the bondage of karma. Now, we will move on to atheism in Jaina philosophy. In Indian philosophy, Jainism presents along with Buddhism a religion without belief in personal God. The Jain do not believe in the existence of personal God. They are avowed atheists, but atheism of Jainism is different from the atheism of the Charvakas. C.D. Sharma makes a comparison of the concept of atheism in Jainism and Charvaka philosophy. He observes, the Jainas are sometimes called Nastikas or heretics. If Nastika means one who denies the spirit, the ethical conduct and the life beyond, the Charvaka is the only system in Indian philosophy which can be called Nastika. Jainism, like Buddhism, and in the sense even more than Buddhism, is intensely spiritual and ethical. The Jainas, therefore, are not atheistic in this sense. Denial of God does not necessarily mean atheism in Indian philosophy. Otherwise, the Sankhya and Mimamsa, which do not believe in the existence of God, would not have been called orthodox. The word Nastika, therefore, is used for him who denies the authority of Veda. In this sense, Jainism, like Buddhism, is Nastika. The Naiyayikas argue that the world, which is of the nature of an effect, must have an efficient cause. Just as pot is made by a potter, the Naiyayikas argue God is the efficient cause of the world. According to the Nyaya view, God has created the world out of pre-existing external atoms. The atoms are the material cause of the universe. The world consists of parts and is of immense magnitude. The world is produced by God, who has direct knowledge of the material atoms, desire to create the world, and the volition to do so. The Jaina philosophers criticize Nyaya arguments. The atheism of Jainism is based on the following postulates. 1. If God is the creator of the world, He created the world with a body or without a body. But God cannot create the world without a body, just as a pot is not created by potter without a body. If God created the world with a body, it is either perceptible or imperceptible. It is not perceptible since grass, plants, rainbow and the like are found to be simultaneously generated without its aid. If God's body is imperceptible, what is its cause? If special greatness is its cause, there is no reason to prove it, and it involves a mutual dependence. God's imperceptible body depends upon His special greatness, and His special greatness depends on His imperceptible body. The body of human being is caused by their merits and demerits, but God's body cannot be caused by His merit and demerit, because He is devoid of merit and demerit. Therefore, God cannot have a perceptible or imperceptible body. He cannot create a world without a body also. The second argument, Jaina philosophers argue that like the existence of the God, the qualities of omnipotence, unity, eternity and perfection generally attributed to God are also doubtful. If God is omnipotent, He should be supposed to be the cause of all things, but this is not true, because we perceive daily that many objects like houses, pots, books, etc., are not produced by God. If someone says that the God is eternally perfect, this argument is also invalid, because eternal perfection is a meaningless epithet. Perfection is only removal of imperfection, and It is meaningless to call a being perfect who was never imperfect. The third argument, if the God is absolutely eternal, he can neither create the world nor destroy it, since creation and destruction imply change and God is admitted to be unchangeable and immutable. Creation and destruction are the two distinct kinds of acts. They cannot be enacted by an eternal God who is not liable to change. The fourth argument, if God is the creator of the world, what is the motive of his creation? An intelligent being exerts himself owing to self-interest or compassion for others. But if God is eternally fulfilled being, he has no unfulfilled desires, he has no self-interest, so he cannot create the world for fulfill his selfish ends, nor can he be moved by the compassion for other creatures. Compassion is the desire to remove the suffering of others, but before creation there is no suffering, because of the body, mind and the sense organs are not yet created at that point of time. Hence, God has no motive for creation. If God creates the world for a sport, then his creative act is purposeless, like the folly of a child. Though the Jains thus come to reject God as creator of the world, they worship and meditate the liberated souls of the Siddhas. The Jainas believe that the liberated souls possess godlike perfections. Prayers are offered to the Siddhas for guidance and also for inspiration. The Jainas purify their minds by contemplation of the pure and strengthens his heart for the uphill journey to liberation. Jainism is a religion without belief in God, but unlike Charvakas, they worship the divinity of man. In this sense, atheism of Jaina is qualitatively different from that of Charvaka philosophy. On the basis of the above given paper, we can have the following assignments. 1. Explain the nature of pratyaksha in Jaina epistemology. 2. Give a brief account of Triratnas. 3. Describe the concept of transcendental knowledge in Jaina philosophy. 4. Kevaljnana is a form of immediate knowledge. Justify the statement. 5. Give an account of mediate knowledge with special reference to recognition. 6. Explain the concept of moksha in Jaina thought. 7. Jainism is a religion without God. Explain. The following books can be used as a reference. Philosophies of India. The author is Joseph Campbell and published by Motilal and Banaras, Delhi. The second book is the Pravachana Sara of Kundakunda Acharya. It is written by Fagdan and is published by Cambridge University Press. The third book is Jaina Sutras. It is given in the sacred books of the East, and the author is Jacobi, published by Oxford University Press. The fourth book is A History of Indian Philosophy in 5 volumes, written by Das Gupta, published by Cambridge University Press. Thank you for watching this session. We will have one more session on Jaina philosophy. Thank you.